doing this presentation for us. We really do appreciate it, and I'm very excited.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you who've checked in, I did put a couple of, I put a copy of the presentation in a handout format, and there's also a worksheet. This is an experiential type of presentation. You don't necessarily need those. What I would recommend you do is at least grab like a blank sheet of paper and something to write with, and that's plenty enough for you to actually do the portion where it would be experiential. So I just wanted to put that out there right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start. This is a webinar for FALGBTIC. That's such a hard thing to say. Hopefully we hurry up and change that to SAGE like everyone else is doing. That'll be a little bit easier for us to pronounce. So I'm it's an honor for me to be able to present this webinar here today. And I appreciate everyone who's showing up for that today. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me. My pronouns are okay. So my pronouns are she and her, or they and them. I'll use them interchangeably. I'm okay with both of those. I'm a 20-year retired Navy veteran. I'm also a member and ally of the LGBTQ+ community. I'm founder of Beyond the Matter Counseling and Consulting Services, LLC, here in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the Counselor Education and Supervision Program at National Louis University here in Tampa. Okay, so I see there that you're not seeing links. If you give me a moment, I will go ahead and resubmit those and put them back in, unless our monitor can go ahead and do that. And I emailed them to you.
Everything and the chat room. So just present and I'll worry about everything else.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. All right, so like I said, I'm in the Counselor Ed program at National Louis. I'm currently in the middle of my dissertation, and my research focus is on integrating military and LGBTQ+ competencies in counselor education. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. First of all, let's just kind of take a break. If you're on a lunch break, let's just kind of take a deep breath, focus on your body, exhale, take another deep breath, focus on bringing all of that positive energy into your space right now, clearing all the stuff that you just walked into the room with. And the next breath, take your third breath and think about what's important now so we can be focused on this presentation. So thank you for that. Okay. All right, so our learning objectives are you're going to be able to identify and educate students, supervisees, and clients on ambivalent guilt reactions and ambiguous loss as it relates to families with a transitioning loved one. You'll also be able to demonstrate the use of the relationship tree as an experiential approach to processing grief as it relates to ambivalent feelings and ambiguous loss. And you're also going to be able to describe the process of identifying perceived losses related to the transitioning family member and guide clients to reauthor their family stories. Okay, the first thing I'm going to get into is I'm going to review a little bit of like family perspectives from actual family members who are have gone through this ambiguous loss and having feelings about that. Just to be clear, ambivalence is a state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone, and ambiguous is unclear or capable of being understood in two or more ways. In the 70s, Dr. Pauline Boss coined the term ambiguous loss. She found that human relationships can be ruptured indefinitely by ambiguous loss that's caused by trauma and frozen grief. Today, we're going to focus specifically on family members that have a family member that is going through the transitioning process. And so we're going to focus that ambiguous loss as experienced by those families. which includes the family member actually being present, but there's also very distinct changes that both intertwine and tangle the past, present, and the future. Okay, so Mary Moss said, my daughter Grace passed away in September 2010. There wasn't an obituary, there wasn't a funeral, there wasn't a casket, or even a body to put it in. No one sent me sympathy cards. No one brought me casseroles, but that wasn't because no one cared. It was because my daughter was still alive. So ambiguous loss as it relates to the transitioning loved one involves a physical and psychological presence with a significant change to the individual's physical, mental, emotional presentation and how they interrelate with the world around them. Jessie Sage said, what I couldn't talk about as an intersectional feminist trans advocate and academically trained gender scholar was what it felt like to mourn the loss of the child that's still alive. Mary Moss also said, I distinctly remember crying one Saturday afternoon in bed, mourning the loss of my daughter, Grace. Grace came in and hugged me. Mom, if this is going to be so hard for you, I won't do it, she said. I looked into her eyes and saw such fear. I knew that she needed to transition to alleviate the pain in her heart, but she was willing to keep going through the pain to spare me pain. I thought about what a great kid I had and about the fact that what I loved was her heart and soul and not her gender. So these are like pretty powerful statements from family members who are going through this. And it's not because there's the struggle happens not because there's a lack of care or acceptance, that there's a lot of mixed feelings that come up from that. And one of the things that actually motivated me to actually put a presentation together related to this was one of my own actual clients, a young, very out, proud, lesbian woman in her early 20s. And she came in, and by the third session, like she had mentioned that, her father transitioned. So now, she has two moms, and, the first couple of sessions, she was talking about how that, that was, about how that wasn't an issue. But by the third session, she said she felt like a hypocrite. She said she's having a hard time reconciling the type of relationship that she used to have with her parent before the transition and what type of relationship to have with her parent now after the transition. And so that really brought a lot of like grief and guilt and, a lot of mixed feelings. Like, she's like, I'm an advocate, like I'm LGBT myself. And here I am struggling with my own parent. And how do I deal with that? So I thought that it was important for us to, bring this to the forefront. I did some research on ambiguous loss, and I came up with this utilizing Dr. Boss's relationship tree and how we can modify it towards our clientele who are going through this this type of grief and loss. So the goals are basically, we're going to help, we can help facilitate processing of pain that's associated with any perceived losses, encourage our clients to tell their stories, and also to allow them a safe space to bring up the feelings and gain insight into their own concept of loss. Also to help normalize their mixed feelings. It's normal to have multiple feelings at the same time about something, and help them to balance their views around their losses. Another goal is also to help clients facilitate deconstructing some of the challenging thinking about the loss that they perceived, and also empower them to construct new stories based on strength and hope. Jessie Sage said, being the mother of a trans kid means having to wrestle and come to terms with the expectations that you had and what these expectations tell you about your own gendered socializations. So there's the, okay, these were my hopes and dreams, and, I'm looking forward to different milestones in my child's life. And then there's a change, and I don't know how to reconcile that. Like, what now? Like, what happens then? And sometimes, you know, our clients may get so caught up into that grief, loss, and their ambiguous feelings that they, you know, about the loss, that they aren't able to kind of resolve that and look towards the future in terms of, okay, there can be some new meaning there. And this particular exercise can also is a great guide, I feel, that can help clients actually work through coming to terms with that. So this basically puts together two different types of therapy. The first piece is art therapy, and it's the creation of the relationship tree. It was created by N. Lynn Peterson to fulfill an assignment in a graduate course on grief and loss. It addresses grief and loss associated with complicated relationships. It's designed for group work and works very well in individual counseling too. I've done it with many of my clients in individual sessions, so I can attest to it working well there as well. It's also a creative expression that can restore feelings of power and acceptance. It raises objectivity and increases insight and gives voice to the emotions. It's also a safe expression of difficult thoughts and feelings that may seem objectionable to verbalize. It's also designed to reduce censorship of clients' thoughts. Sorry, I have a very sensitive mouse over here. And be able to verbalize those thoughts. It's also it's going to reduce censorship. One of the things that I found as far as the censorship piece is sometimes it's like some clients, even when they're dealing with regular grief and loss, and maybe they didn't have a positive relationship with the member who had passed, for whatever reason, they have a difficult time putting those aspects down on the tree. And so our job as clinicians is to encourage and give them that space to be able to write everything, just dump it all out there, and let's see what comes of that without judgment. So this art therapy piece also fosters a holistic view of relationships by encouraging clients to experience the full range of their feelings through a visual representation. Mary Moss also said there wasn't a funeral, there was a birth announcement. I gave birth to my child again, but this time in the correct gender. So that is the restoring piece. This is where the narrative therapy piece comes in, that we can actually help empower our clients to deconstruct the old stories and the old expectations and formulate new ones so that they can carry that forward and help with their healing process. Okay, so this narrative therapy was developed by Michael White and David Epstein. It's a postmodern counseling approach, and individuals continually create their own stories about their experiences. If anyone is familiar with any of Brene Brown's work, she talks a lot about the stories we tell ourselves, and sometimes the story we tell ourselves are a bit limiting based on maybe limiting belief systems, or limited in terms of I'm not able to see past what I'm looking at right now. And so narrative therapy is a very, very powerful type of therapy, and it's something that seems to work very well with this relationship tree around the ambiguous loss. Interpretation of events can be positive, empowering, or debilitating and painful. So through storytelling, disempowering aspects of that may keep the client stuck are identified, and therapists help deconstruct assumptions and beliefs and engage clients in reauthoring conversations. It also enables clients to see transition from a new perspective and empowers clients to craft narratives of success and hope. So the preps and the process related to the relationship tree are very simple. Like I had mentioned before, all you need is really in the most basic form, a piece of paper and a pencil. If you're doing this in person, there's different ways. You can use paper, poster board, colored markers, pencils, etc. Many variations of creating the tree are available, as if just drawing the tree, having the client draw the tree themselves, having pre-printed trees, you know, using construction paper where we can do layers and cut and paste. So there's basically artistic license to do this in any way. There's no right or wrong way to do it. When we're doing that art therapy piece, it's whatever comes out. And it's just the whole purpose is just actually taking it from inside and putting it out here so we can take a look at it. So the leaves will be they'll be labeled with memories or milestones. They're placed on the tree. You'll begin to notice where where the client places the leaf. You know, is it on a branch? Is it falling? Is it down by the roots? So those are things that are also telling as well as you go through this process. You know, as a facilitator, you would prompt with questions to serve as a starting point for processing the feelings and drawing out insights gained through the exercise. And there's different parts where there's the initial prompting questions, and then there's also additional prompting questions to help facilitate the reauthoring of the story. These are just what I'm going to say is the questions they're just a guideline, and wherever your clinical, you know, gut tells you to go, then of course you're free to go there with the client because you have background and history with them as well. So there's a virtual option. If you want, this works great virtually as well. There's many different ways. I've done this exercise with clients on virtual platform. One of the ways that I just wanted to introduce is using a digital whiteboard, and this one in particular is Jamboard. So I just wanted to show you this in case you wanted to offer that option to your clients and have them like create the tree virtually instead of just, okay, draw the tree, show me the tree. This is another way to do that. So Jamboard actually gives the option of being able to search for different types of photo. So if I was going to go to Google search, I could put in like tree outline, and you can pick. There's a variety of different things that you can pick from for that. So there's, you know, even if you're not drawing it yourself, there's still some creative license to which tree appeals to you or your client on what you want to use. You can also, you know, type in leaf outline, because if I just put leaf in, like real leaves are going to come. But if you want to use those, that's fine as well. So you can pick any one of these and have them do that. And the other thing is there's the option to be able to kind of place them on the tree wherever you see fit, to actually write in the different characteristics or aspects of the relationship or what their potential fears and worries are on the tree and to place them. So, and the only thing that I feel like it's limited with is in terms of like any type of coloring, but at the end of the day, it's really not about the coloring. I've had clients do it many different ways. Some are just kind of like basic pencil drawing or just kind of using the outline and writing whatever comes up for them as far as, you know, the different characteristics. But I've also had some clients like get, you know, all different types of colors, and they'll color code the 3 colors and what do they want to use there and where they place it. And even the tree itself has different colors. So it's really an individual type of thing. But the whole purpose is if I can get whatever those characteristics are that I feel like I have mixed feelings about, that is where we gain our information in terms of processing goes. So I just wanted to share this with you. Okay. All right, where did my pick there? Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, back. We're back. All right, so okay, so this is basically the part where you as participants are able to actually go through this experiential process. So we probably have about 35 minutes to do this exercise. But before we get into that, I wanted to pause here and see if anyone has any questions or anything that you want to ask up to this point in relation to the tree. So if you want to put it in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and put your voice out there and say that, I'm okay with that as well, if that's possible. So does anybody have any questions so far?
Doing such a good job at explaining everything that I mean, I'm totally like zoned in right now. So
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a question, but you did such a great job of explaining that. I'm really excited to use it with my own clients. Like, I've already looked it up on my end. So thank you for that. That's amazing.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is awesome. We are going to go through this exercise, and then we're gonna be able to actually kind of process it ourselves. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and do the exercise, draw it. You know, if you were able to maybe download and print out that stuff, great too. It doesn't matter, as long as you're doing it. So if you happen to, if this is something that resonates really close to you, and you have a family member, or you have a very similar situation in terms of someone who is transitioning, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and do it with that person. I've done this workshop several different times, and even though we're clinicians, we also have our own feelings about things, and it's not like a personal judgment, like, oh my God, I'm a counselor and I can't even deal with this thing with my family member. It's perfectly okay. So this is what I'm going to say. Like, one of the stories that I can share very briefly about is another one of my clients, who going through the transition process, a transgendered male, and he came in talking about of course his history and everything with his parents, and his parents happen to be very well educated, very pro LGBT, and all that as well, but there's still the thing, like the family perspectives that I went through before. So mom's a nurse, and dad's actually a licensed counselor. So, but there's still that piece when it comes to someone close to your family. And so my client, some of his issues with his parents were that you missed the clues. I gave you clues my entire life, but you didn't support me there. I wanted to wear my clothes I wanted to wear certain clothes, and you basically kind of either mocked, fooled, whatever about me to want to wear boy clothes. I cut my hair, and then you would make these comments about that. So you missed all these clues, and so he had some resentment about his parents. So I was able to get them into a family session. And the other piece is where the parents are, it's not because they were against that in and of itself. It was for fear. It really was fear-based. It was about, you're gonna, we know we have a cruel world out there. We know that LGBT plus community are not very very highly esteemed, and in some, here we are, we're living in the South. I'm in Florida, so we're in Florida. Here we are. There was this fear and this realistic idea of what is going to happen now. You're going to go out there, and I don't feel like you're going to be safe, like you're a target. So we were able to process that in session. So these are very real things that come up. It's not necessary, and sometimes it comes out sideways. If I just kind of tell you your clothes look like crap and it doesn't look good on you, maybe you won't wear that, and then I can feel safe about that. So that's kind of one of the things that this exercise helps you do with your family members. Like, let's put all those aspects out there. Let's just get real about that, because it really wasn't about whether somebody cut their hair or grew their hair, or what they decided to wear. Like, I think ultimately it's about what is going to happen next, and what is that life going to be for my child, my family member, my loved one. Okay. All right. So the next slide is basically just, I'm throwing out there If you want to draw a tree, you can like copy that, whatever, however you want to do that. So what I want you to do is go ahead and I want you to take the time to draw a tree and put, just make the outline in some way, shape, or form. And the next thing we're going to do is I want you to, things that to consider as far as the leaves on the tree once you draw the tree. I want you to consider things like, what are some positive aspects that you want to put on there? What are some, and okay, and so I'm gonna stop myself right there before I go there. If you are not using this on a transgender family member, that is okay. What I'm going to say is you can still do the exercise and make it effective. It's more effective if you do it personally, not like, well, I'm going to kind of, pretend I'm my client and do that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's, if you can do it on yourself, you can see what the actual experience is of doing this. So you can also, I've used this exercise with regular grief and loss, the loss of a loved one. You can also use it if there's some sort of aspect of the person that has changed. Like, let's say, my dad died from Alzheimer's. So there's the distinct change between who he was before Alzheimer's and then the rapid decline and then all of that. There are so many different stages of grief and loss with that it helps if there's some sort of physical, medical, cognitive decline. So you can do it with that. I've had clients use it with a family member who died suddenly because of a drug overdose, and maybe the relationship wasn't the best prior to that. So there's a lot of mixed feelings that come up for that. So you can do it, you can pick any type of thing. Another thing would be if there's a divorce or a severed relationship in anywhere that maybe it was like undone, unsaid, unfinished, there's like, feelings that still come up about that, you can do it for that as well. So there are so many different ways that you can do this exercise. So I'm going to strongly encourage for you to pick a person in your life or relationship somewhere in your history that you're like, yeah, I'm going to try to do it on that because I feel like something was not done, or I kind of have mixed feelings about that relationship. Okay. Oops. All right. So the next thing I'm going to say, as you're drawing your tree, the things I want you to consider when you make the leaves are like, what are the meanings of the leaves on the tree? Consider some positive aspects, and you can color code those. Like, yeah, and the color doesn't matter either. Just put whatever. Like, I feel like this should be here. And if you're not using color, that's fine too. If you're using a pen, that's great. If you're using a pencil or marker, that's fine too. Okay. So think about like, what are some admirable traits of the family member, some things that are constants, what are some happy events that are shared, what are some memories and milestones that have been experienced, because those things don't go away, they're still there. And so I think one of the things that some of our families struggle with this issue is, like, well, what do I do with that now? Like what happens, like where, like what happens to like this many years in our lives, like, that our family has experienced, like what happens then? So I would encourage you to like, write those things down. Consider some things that might be neutral, but defining aspects of whatever the relationship is, or anything that's in relation to the transition itself, or whatever the incident was that created some sort of sever or some feeling of ambiguous loss. Also, any shared events that may evoke mixed feelings, some hopes and dreams, the rites of passage, negative or difficult aspects related to the transition. What are the concerns that come up as far as that? Maybe less desirable aspects, burdens that you feel like may be imposed on the family member or the family, or fears and safety concerns. So these are just kind of some ideas. So I would encourage you to, whatever comes up, to think about some of those aspects and place place those leaves wherever you feel. I have to put this on silent because now my phone's going nuts. So sorry. So go ahead and do that. We're going to take probably about, I don't know, let's, about maybe 5 minutes to take some time out, throw some stuff out there so you can get the idea of what this experience is like. And we'll check back in, and I'll go into the prompting questions. And that's when we can start doing a little bit more kind of dialogue of processing of what's happening with this exercise. So it just turned 1:36 right now. So I'll say by 1:41 we'll come back and start doing the narrative piece, the combo. So let me go back. And once again, if there's any questions or if anyone needs any kind of clarification of something, please throw it in the chat or unmute yourself. I'm right here. We're right here. So it looks like we have probably about another minute. Does anyone need more time? All right, so we hit the 141 mark. So the next part is the prompting questions. And so I'm going to throw them up on the board here. So what I want you to do is, and these only serve as a starting point for processing feelings and insights that are gained from the exercise, and they can always be expanded upon and adopted in relation to your specific client. So this is what I want you to do for yourself right now. I want you to kind of like look at the tree, kind of have an objective look at it. And what do you see as you look at the tree? You know, what stands out for you? As you were writing the leaves on the tree, like, did anything surprise you? What did you feel? What feelings came up? So I want you to focus on those questions right now. And, you know, we'll throw in the last one too, which we usually do afterwards, after we've processed the first three, is like, if you could change one leaf on the tree, which one would it be, if there would be any? So if anyone, you know, is brave enough or open enough to want to share anything that they've experienced while doing this exercise, I would love to hear that. If you feel more comfortable putting it in the chat, you can. If you want to mute your mic, I would say do that.
One thing I will say, I was surprised when I was putting mine together. There was a lot of themes around like feeling like I messed something up, which is ridiculous, right? Because this is not it's not a bad thing by any means. And if you ask me that, you know, just, well, do you think it's bad that your loved one is going through this? I would say, well, no, of course not. I think it's great. So it really surprised me that I had this kind of guilty theme come up, and I'm kind of judging myself for that and trying not to.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. And so this is what happens. We have these things that happen. So I don't think it's uncommon to have that. Like, what did I do? You know, being who I am and having grown up and come out to my family, that's kind of like a theme that I heard. Like, you know, the first time my mom found out, the first thing she did was like, what did I do wrong? You know, like, not that, I mean, she's always been loving and affirming, but still there's that piece. So yeah, I think that's, you know, I think that's important, because that's something that's going to come up. But for us to be able to meet our clients there, and to meet yourself there in a non-judging way, is more of like, I have room for that too. Like, I just can kind of acknowledge and be mindful that this piece comes up too, you know? So so thank you so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
One thing that came up for me was, will our communication change? I know how to handle talking to my kid when he was a he. Now he's not a he. I'm not sure I'm skilled enough to handle the transition. I feel not capable.
Okay, so you feel like the communication changed?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's interesting, because I think that was one of the things when my young lesbian client, who was dealing with you know, her transgender mom at that point, was like, man, we used to always, you know, our conversations were flow, like we were best friends, and now I don't know what to do with that. I don't even know what to say. So I think that's something that's very real that comes up. So hopefully when we get to that next stage of you know, how do can we start restoring this? And we can go ahead and maybe come up with, you know, some ways on how do you bridge that gap, because your loved one is still the same person, individual on the inside, like it's still that. So some things have changed. So there's this, I think there's this awkward phase that may happen. So I really appreciate you being able to bring that to the forefront in here. So thank you so much. Anyone else before we go into that next section? Okay. So, all right. So the next, click twice. All right, so this is where we can start helping ourselves and our clients reauthor the story. So there's some things, these are prompting questions. I want you to consider these. I have like 3 slides of these. So some of the things are like, you know, what conclusions do you draw? I think one of the things I heard was, you know, like pinpointing the communication piece and how, like, how can we get through that? How can we get past that? You know, what would your loved ones say about that? Is there a different conclusion you can draw? What are the strengths that are revealed by your family member, by you, and how you're handling the situation? What does it suggest about your values? It sounds to me like, you know, having open communication is something that is valued. And so now that feels like a loss as well. Is there something that prevents you from moving forward? Or what would enable you to work through this? What is the piece that you feel like would help bridge that gap? You know, does it involve having an open conversation? Let's talk about the fact that we don't talk like we used to anymore. Let's just, you know, let's have that conversation. It feels awkward. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to say the right thing, or, you know, how can I talk to you? What is okay? Like asking. I think one of the best things is for us to actually have an open dialogue with our loved one and saying, you know, I'm kind of at a loss here. I want to be able to have conversations, but I feel like I'm stifling myself. So, and you know, consider what are some things that might empower you to move forward, or how would you incorporate that particular aspect that you feel like might not be there, or that you feel like there's a concern about. How can you do that? The next slide also has some more questions there. And they're, you know, these go in a lot of different directions. So it's really about whatever's being revealed at the time that you're working through this, or working with this with your client. I think one of the important things is what could help you accept the range of feelings that you have about this, because that's another thing that I hear that comes up is I have a lot of different mixed feelings, and I'm judging myself, and how can I accept those feelings? And I'll throw out the last one as well. What are some things that you learned from dealing with these mixed feelings? You know, what would your loved ones say about you or your relationship? You know, what have you learned from this that you're, you know, that's going to help you improve your relationship? Because I think it's going to highlight some very specific things. You know, okay, I've got my own feelings that I'm kind of struggling with. You know, it's really okay to have that conversation. I think one of the biggest things that helps families heal from many things is when we can actually allow space, honor space, to be able, like, let's like come to neutral ground and talk about each other's experiences in this. You know, I encourage, like, when I work with my transgender clients, I do encourage, like, incorporating their family into it if that's something that their family member is willing to do. All right, so as you're considering some of these reauthoring questions and that can prompt, you know, your own introspection of the situation, Is there anything anyone would like to kind of share on what stands out for them as far as these things go? Like what do you feel like, in what direction, like what was revealed that you're like, yes, this is something that I see that can change, that, you know, I can look at this in a different way. I could, you know, spin it in a positive. There's other things to look forward to. Even though there's a distinct change that occurred, there's other things that we can look forward to. Does anyone want to share on that?
On this question where it says, what could you do now that would enable you to feel that you are honoring your loved one's right to feel whole and happy? That's kind of like aha for me, because I was in the past thinking, well, I accept you. Isn't, I mean, I'm not, you know, opposing you. I'm accepting you. Isn't that good enough? But obviously it's not good enough. You want to be honoring. You want to be, you know, not just lukewarm, but supportive. And so that's a question that only they can truly answer for me, is how do I help you feel, you know, esteemed and honored, and so that's just not good enough. Just the, you know, I'm not opposing you, I accept you. So that spoke to me.
Thanks for sharing that. And that goes into having some conversations. You know, what do you need from me? You know, I think we all try our best when it comes to things that are challenging. And sometimes, you know, we need to just kind of allow some space to ask, you know, what can help me do this better for you? Or, you know, how can we bridge whatever gap we feel like is happening there? So I thank you so much for sharing that. Does anyone else want to share anything? We probably have about 7 minutes, and we can do an overall like clinical perception of what we think about this. Sure, the kind of support will vary from person to person. Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Do you want to expound on that, or you can unmute your mic. Okay, so any other takers on wanting to share what came up for them, or what stood out for them, or how you could potentially restory what you're seeing on the tree to shift directions? Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Michael. I appreciate that. Simple acceptance may be enough for one person, whereas others may need more support in the way of using proper pronouns. Yes. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things when I work with my clients is offer some grace as well, even on the transitioning person's side towards their loved ones. You know, that takes time. It takes time. I don't think it's always a blatant type of, you know, microaggression against the person's actual transition. Sometimes it's just, you know, I mean, it's you know, we're talking about probably decades of using certain pronouns in a certain way, and so part of that is just kind of like, how can you help make that better in terms of like, hey, offer some grace, and can we, you know, what's the code, you know, so it's not like it doesn't go into some sort of resentment and you're not seeing me or honoring me. It's more of, okay, let's just a gentle reminder, so that, I think everyone's feelings need to be honored in a sense of I'm trying, and I'm going to mess up sometimes. And, can you help me with that? So I think that's important in order to be able to do that as well. Okay, so we've probably got about 4 minutes. So what I want to do now is, what are your, do you see using this in your own settings with your own clients? Can you see any value to being able to incorporate this type of exercise? I love the feedback. If there's any suggestions, I'm open to that. Like every time I do this, I kind of tweak it just a little bit more. So does anyone want to just kind of share your overall experience of this training today?
I would definitely want to use the tree. I've already downloaded a Jam, whatever, so I can use it. I think it gives my clients who have a hard time expressing themselves another opportunity, another venue, and I'm interested in trying it. I'll have to let you know how it goes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, Alicia. I know that I continue to learn from my clients like every single day. They motivate me. They're the ones that I get my aha moments from. Even me, a member of an LGBTQ plus community, and I have someone else in my room and I'm like, wow, I didn't even consider that part, because we all have different experiences. So I can definitely appreciate, there's never a time where I'm going to feel like I know it all just because I was born like this. Like that's ridiculous. So
Definitely.
okay, so since we've probably got like maybe less than 2 minutes left on here, I'm gonna in the presentation I've also in your handout, if you decided to download that, I added just the traditional method there. I've got resources here to add to yours that you probably already have. Here are my references, and if anybody wants to reach out, collaborate, whatever, get support. I'm doing all virtual stuff right now, so if you need another ear to just kind of bounce off what this virtual life has been like, I'm there too. So feel free to take my info down. My cell phone number's there and my email address. So if you like the old fashioned way, sure, write me a letter, but we can just kind of send Zoom links to each other and have a face to face.
Maria, thank you so much. I just wanted to remind everybody, please fill out formal evaluations. You also will get an email from FCA with the presentation. All the documents that we weren't able to put into the chat, they will be sent to everybody along with the evaluation link in case you missed it. So everyone will have that material. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback that I'm getting there. I really appreciate that. I will be putting more information out sometime next year in other forums in terms of ethics and working with LGBTQ within the military system as well. So look for those notices coming out there. I'm good. Thank you so much for helping me facilitate this today. And thanks for everyone for being here. I appreciate that.
Pleasure. Thank you guys. I'll stick around for a few if anybody has any questions. If not, I'll close it shortly.